Officially, 2014 is here.
This is
Can we
it?
have roll call, please?
Sure. Cindy Clark. Here. Russ Collins. Bob Gunzel. Roger Hewitt.
Here.
Jill Lowenstein. Here. Al McWilliams.
Here.
John Mowat.
Here.
Rishi Narayan.
Here.
Keith Orr. Steve Powers.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. We start out every meeting with audience participation. We have one person signed up, Sean Spellman, 624 Church Street Development. You would step to the podium, please. You have 4 minutes.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I think we are on later in the agenda for a resolution. I want to let everyone know I'm here to answer questions. And there were 2 comments I wanted to make to the resolution as it was drafted. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the 6th whereas paragraph, towards the end of it, I was the language currently reads. Let me back up. This is an accommodation to the resolution is ultimately an accommodation to our lenders, as we talked about a few months ago. Our obligation to Ann Arbor and our zoning requirements are the initial 15-year term. So this language, I just wanted to make sure it was clearly said. Instead of it saying parking permits, it must lease during the extension consistent with, it would say it may lease during the extension consistent with the project's parking requirements at that time. So this was, I think we talked last time about how the development may, at that time, not need as many stalls, and we would have the ability to ask for less in the event that the development didn't need that many. So instead of being consistent with the city's site plan parking requirements, we wanted this just to reflect the project's parking requirements at that time. If that's clear, I don't know if that's clear at all. There's only 2 words we wanted to change in there. Instead of the word city, put in the word projects. And instead of the word must, put in the word may. I don't know if you guys followed that.
Tell us where, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I was on the resolution under the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whereas the DDA Operations Committee recommends that parking agreement for this project include. It's the last sentence of that whereas statement.
We do have maybe.
Oh, do I have a different version?
Yeah, it's routine now.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Then you know what? Then we have that. Perfect. Then I have no
Yeah,
comments.
that's-
I apologize.
I think all of us were scared.
You know what? I have an email. It must have been a version earlier, and so it's very well. So I think we're in good shape. And the other thing that I hope my 4 minutes aren't up. The other thing that I wanted to just hopefully clarify was that we talked about the potential of relocating the stalls in the subsequent extension periods. We have had some feedback and commentary back and forth from a number of lenders who wanted to make sure it's within the parking would be located within the DDA system in the downtown area. So I think that it was currently left as you can relocate it to Toledo. They want to make sure it's within the system. It sounds silly, but it was a request that I had made. So if there's a possible clarification as to where it's relocated within the system, those words would be enough for us to be comfortable. So thank you for your time, and I'm here for questions later on.
Thank you. Let's move right into reports, city boards and commissions. We have Ray Ditter, Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council. Ray, you've got 4 minutes.
You know, you take up my time every time you tell me that. But
And now you're down to...
first of all, I want to congratulate the Downtown Development Authority, and particularly Susan Polley, with regard to, at this particular point, the opening up and the inhabiting of city apartments. Because those of you who have been around for a long period of time know what it took to get that project. I mean, it's taken us a long period of time working in order to develop something which is going to hopefully be a real success on that corner. And another thing, too, Peter Allen is not here, neither is Tom Fitzsimmons, but both of those projects, both the Kingsley Lane project and also the one that's on the Greek Church site, are projects that fit into the nature of what it is that we want in the area of downtown, and they also go along with the zoning. In this case, D2, and of course Tom Fitzsimmons gave up a planned unit development and then made it into a D2 and reduced what he could have done considerably in order to do a really good job on that particular location. But I want to discuss today what we discussed last night as an advisory council, and that is the recommendations that have been made by the Purdue Group and also now by the Planning Commission with regard to downtown zoning. And I've said this before, but the Citizens Advisory Council and also the Downtown and Near Downtown Neighborhood Group have based our support for downtown zoning changes on the 2009 downtown plan goal of encouraging zoning and design approaches that minimize the extent to which downtown developments create negative impacts on neighbors in terms of height, scale, shading, and harm to natural and historic resources and views. We believe also that the Aaron Purdue group did a really good job in terms of getting the community all involved with this, and also the planning commission, although we don't agree with them on everything, nonetheless did a thorough examination of that, which is what we wanted. Now, there are a number of things that are in the recommendations with regard to the planning commission to the city council, and the city council will ultimately decide these. But I just want to mention 4 of these because there's not enough time to go beyond. It's going to be very quick, but where we are to really relate to what it is that I've already said with regard to our position. So the Planning Commission at this particular point recommends rezoning the parcel located at 336 East N, that's right next to City Hall, which is currently zoned for an 18-story building right across the street from a historic and residential neighborhood. Well, that simply was a terrible mistake, and we're going to change that at this particular point. And we recommend, in addition to that, that we extend that change, because if it's going to be made into D2, that should be extended all the way down to North 4th, just to be consistent. The second one that is coming from the Planning Commission, reduce the maximum height in the East Huron 1 character area. That's on the north side of Huron, between Division and North State, to 120 feet. Include a tower diagonal maximum, and consider a setback requirement to reduce the shading of residential properties to the north. There was a lot of discussion of this. Of course, Dennis Dahlman, who owns that property in between Sloan Plaza and Campus Inn, supports this change, even though it's a downzoning of that property from 150 feet to 120. And there, too, in order to be consistent, we advocate extending that all the way again to North 4th, so that all along that north side, the similar zoning will exist. And of course, even though the City Council had not put it on their agenda with regard to what it is they wanted to look at, the Aaron Purdue group went ahead and made the recommendation that that property, which is currently Amos on that corner, which is currently zoned, again, 180 feet. And across the street, we all know that we put in 413 at only 150 feet, and the problems that that created. That we go in that particular location, actually make it 120 feet, which seems reasonable to avoid all of the real difficulties that we've already experienced at 413. And that should be extended also to North 4th.
Thank you, Ray. Do we have communications from DDA members?
I have a few items, brief items from the city. I think, as everyone knows, the downtown the city hosted 2 pretty significant events: New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day, and overall the response has been very, very positive about both events. Some of the traffic control challenges, we were fortunate that the fans were well behaved and made it to Tim Hortons without any serious injury. I thank the DDA for our participation in particularly the parking support for both of those events. The downtown zoning issue is tentatively scheduled for the downtown zoning consideration is tentatively scheduled for the January 21st City Council meeting. That is a Tuesday because of the Martin Luther King holiday. I see it later on our agenda. There's going to be a report from our partnerships committee on the task force and the work session, council work session coming on Monday the 13th regarding economic health. Council has reaffirmed that as a priority area for the coming year, and I'm very pleased to see that there's going to be some discussion of that from our partnership committee. And also, Monday night, City Council approved a policy regarding the removal of parking meters, and I believe our operations committee will be addressing that later this month. So, thank you.
So, anybody else? Moving on, we have on pages 2 through 12 the minutes from December of 2013. Is there a motion to approve?
So,
Support? Any additions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Subcommittee reports, start with operations. Roger's not here, let's jump down and do partnerships, economic development. Communication, we'll circle back up and do that when he's back from a phone call, I believe. Joan, do you want to
I'll start out. We'll have a little bit of a three-part report out on partnerships, because of some different things that we talked about. We heard from members of the city council about the council's priority and planning session. And the priorities this year that they outlined are basic services, focus on neighborhoods, and quality of life. Hopefully they will work to define some more specific parts of those things that they would like to see. So we simply talked about that and received that, and then we went on to another kind of report from the Economic Development Task Force, if you want to go into that one.
Did I defer that to you?
We'll just keep passing around.
Yeah.
Steve, jump into.
Yeah.
Well, as folks know, we've been meeting for several months now, and I think we've kind of hit on something. I think Steve drafted something, Susan's worked it up a little, but a few of us provided some comments of something of an action plan of kind of the low-hanging items that different entities can pursue, different entities being the city, Spark, and DDA. As far as the DDA items, I think they're all within the purview of the kind of work we've done before and part of what we've talked about. So I think that it'll be interesting to see how it's received, and obviously, as Steve mentioned, there's this meeting on January 13th where maybe that'll illuminate a little bit more about how City Council wants to move forward with it. I guess one general comment I'd like to make about it, though, is that there are two parts. One is the specific sort of action plan items of what might be able to be done, but I think there's also an element or an opportunity here to help sort of change the culture a little bit of our community, and in that, I think economic development, the words kind of have a somewhat negative connotation in our community, and it's unfortunate. I don't like them either myself, but I view it as more to do with jobs and vitality and the general health of the community. And the more that we can help the community come around and think of it in those sorts of terms, that this is a good thing. Helps the tax base, does a lot of good things. So to me, that's sort of one other aspect of it besides the specific tasks that may be taken on in the short term. So I guess that's. Do you have anything to add?
No,
Economic health is what you
well, City Council has renamed the priority area to economic health, and I think largely for the reasons that John mentioned. The city pays most of its bills, provides most of its services through the property tax revenue that's generated by the value of the real estate, and for a few more years the personal property in Ann Arbor. So having that development is important to the city's ability to deliver services. And the work session on Monday is intended to have some discussion around those larger economic issues, and then have some discussion regarding the more specific actions that the city could take. And having the task force help, and I think that the task force has helped so far frame some of those specific actions, as well as helping frame these larger policy considerations for council.
I think the other component that we touched on, and we talked about it briefly today, is it's not economic health or economic development for the sake of doing that, but it's to increase the level of services, to increase the quality of life that we enjoy, and make it more so. So it's not for the it's just not to generate dollars. It's to make our everything better for all the residents of Ann Arbor.
More of the good stuff.
Yeah. Susan, did you want to add anything on that, or do you feel we covered that?
You did a good job.
Outstanding.
And then maybe Al and Rishi can talk a little bit about kind of how we've started an exploration of the marketing and communication aspect.
Yeah, so, we're newly tasked and focusing on the communications aspect of the communications committee, and really trying to figure out how better to explain what it is that we do, in this idea of like educating, reforming economic development, economic health, and also partnering with some of the area associations, all of the area associations, who are already doing a lot. Some have more resources than others. Some have more staff than others, and different area associations. Some are member-driven, some are not. So we want to try to get everybody together, figure out what everyone's doing the same, what they're doing differently, where we can come in and help to better communicate, why downtown is important, the businesses that are involved in downtown, the people that are involved in downtown, and where our role as the DDA is in that, whether it's just from a communication between the associations, whether it's trying to bring everyone together. We're not sure where that is just quite yet, but that's the first step as we develop this kind of communications committee into what is it that we're doing to help. I mean, we don't want to rework the wheel. We don't want to create major websites and campaigns where they're not needed. That's not really our goal and what we're trying to do. But so we're starting there, and then every month we'll have new focus as far as our starting focus, at least next month. Al, anything else?
In addition, the idea of over the years, and I think we've talked a lot about doing more of this data and information collecting. We've talked about some of these new services that are coming out for doing footfall studies and things like that downtown. And as we have the studies that we've done in the past, and we have all this data and information, just looking into ways that we can make that more useful to not only associations, but community members and everybody, because we have those assets kind of already there, and just looking into how to make those a little more useful and accessible. So I will be gone for the next communication committee meeting, but I think we're going to work on it together and then come to the following committee meeting with some items.
So for our partnerships committee meeting, we do have the area association heads coming, so we can discuss that a little bit.
So I've got a question. You mentioned the area association. How about Convention and Visitors Bureau and Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, there's lots of aspects. Yeah, I think the idea was that rather than start with everybody all at once, we'll probably focus on the area associations to start, and we'll go to Convention Visitors Bureau. They're probably pretty taxed right now after their after the recovering after their New Year's, the hangover, right? And then the chamber, and just determine what it is that we're doing specifically to DDA. The downtown area associations are most we have most in common with them to start. So we start there, and I think Al brought up a good point that I forgot, was just this idea of like, what is the information that we have, the tools that we have that we can help downtown businesses tell their story and reintroduce the downtown to people that aren't coming downtown. That's really the goal, and not just people that live in Ann Arbor, but people from outside. And these last two events were a great example of why that's important. I think we all left feeling very positive about bringing lots of people from another country into our town, and them leaving with a good time and talking about it. And we will see what the impact of that is over the next couple of years. We'll see Canadian flags flying all over the place, I'm sure. So.
Great. Well, our next partnerships meeting is next week, next Wednesday at 9 a.m.
Thank you. To reboot on operations.
Sorry for
Sorry?
emergency to take care of. Our first topic of business is resolution to approve extensions as part of the parking agreement with the 624 Church Street development. And I'd like to move the resolution for the committee.
Support.
Okay. I think we discussed this, I think, extensively in committee, and also from the speaker about the concern of being able to work their financing being tied to having the possibility of extending their parking agreement beyond the 15 years that the parking in lieu of ordinance requires, to a total of 30 years with 3 5-year extensions. And this resolution describes that. We do have, and Sean brought up, that during those extensions, the relocation of spaces as provided above to other parking locations if necessary at the time of the contract extension. I feel very strongly that we need to have some flexibility in our system, particularly when we look this far out. We have not given extensions very easily. The city has in the past. But I think we need to be careful of what the system is going to look like 15 to 30 years out. You know, if I haven't been down here 30 years now, I know what it looked like 30 years ago, and it's the downtown and the parking system is pretty dramatically different from what it was 30 years ago. And quite frankly, if the downtown housing boom continues, we're certainly not going to have the parking spaces to start warehousing all the cars that downtown residents are going to want to have. We just don't have the space to build or the money to build that much. So I feel pretty strongly that we have to let future boards and future parking operators have some flexibility on where those parking spaces may go. Currently, we don't have any spaces outside of the parking district that is under the agreement we have with the city, which runs through, I believe, 2033. Certainly there are provisions that there could be spaces farther outside the existing parking district, but I think if there would have to be a very robust shuttle or communication with those, so anyone who wanted to get to their car could get there quickly. But to tie up spaces 30 years out, I think we would not be doing a responsible job to future operators of the system. So I am willing to bend and give the additional options, but I think we have to keep our flexibility open on where those might go. There are certainly a number of downtown properties that are being built right now without any assistance from the DDA, and I don't want us to create an incentive for parking in lieu of agreements, because we need developers to be building parking on their site. So I support the agreement, the resolution as it's written. I guess I would add just one small word of clarification in the resolved, the last sentence on I guess the third line up, where it starts, if necessary, at the time of, and I would insert the word each contract extension, just for clarification.
Friendly?
Friendly, good second.
Discussion on this? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Is that all you have?
All I have right now.
We have a resolution on page 14, which is the last page of your packet. And I would like to move it.
Second.
This resolution essentially takes us to the next step in developing a plan to replace the elevators and stair tower at the 4th and William parking structure. I think that anybody who's used that parking structure, we have 1,000 spaces. The elevator and stairway are original and are at this point inadequate. So we have had preliminary discussions with Carl Walker about how we might go about doing this. It's going to need to be phased so that we have an elevator or stairwell available at all times. It needs to be phased so that it's not disruptive, as much as possible, not disruptive to the neighborhood. But this essentially authorizes $40,000 to go to the next phase of this plan. And I should also say that the Ops Committee has recommended its approval.
Might be good to clarify that kind of it's the design phase.
It is still the
So
design phase, yes.
None of it's
Yeah.
going towards.
Correct. It's still
implementation.
preliminary. Basically, we start to get some renderings, but again, there's a lot of work that goes into just getting to that place. You have to know where electrical and everything else is going.
I would say that as that is a very dull but prominent corner of the parking structure, that as you go forward, that you encourage, if at all possible, to make something that is more of a signature piece to that. I would be much happier making that changeover if we got something more than just a new stairwell.
In our plans thus far, we are talking about opening everything up and putting as much glass as code will allow. And yeah, we're looking at making it much more open, much more accessible, and much more beautiful.
Excellent.
Bit of whiz bang.
The DDA has a capital improvement plan that I think has been recently created or recently updated. And this garage is, I believe, a prominent part of that plan. Perhaps if Susan could comment on the importance of this garage and the context of the DDA's overall, I believe it's a five-year
Yeah,
plan.
we've assembled 5 years worth of projects, and although it's been pointed out, it's an ambitious 5 years. In the parking facility section of this plan, which includes streetscape, which includes maintenance, which includes a host of other things, we're calling out the 4th and William Garage for a couple of key reasons. Number one, connecting William Street really made it clear how important that garage will be to any of the enhancements that we're going to be seeing along William Street as the YMCA lot has now been sold and we're going to see new residents and new people working there. This garage will be pivotal. It's also the link between the Klein lot, Polio lot, Y lot, and the library lot. So we have to be thinking about how this garage fills that space between. And as a first piece, that elevator is a first place to start. As was mentioned, it's the largest garage in the system. We have almost 1,000 people parking in there, and it's perhaps the slowest elevator in the entire Ann Arbor area. It just is so slow. One would think that we were encouraging people to walk 8 flights of stairs. That's how slow. To replace it, it is probably 6 to 8 weeks minimum, then including inspections, you may get to 10 and 12 weeks. And the garage really can't function on just that back elevator, which is off the alley. So we're exploring what would happen if in a phased way we gained a new stairwell, which then allowed us to use the existing stairwell to become a new elevator shaft, which then gained us the chance to then replace the existing elevator. But along the way, as was mentioned, it's not a very attractive garage, because what could we be doing to make its appearance from Main Street be enhanced? It's a chance to also explore the ground floor, which was called out in Connecting William Street, 1 bay deep on 4th Avenue. We could gain back incubator space, and we've talked to at least a couple of us about ideas of what we could use that space for. The key piece with Connecting William Street was to animate the sidewalk. That block of 4th Avenue needs as much as we can as a DDA to gain back human beings. That then also gives us an opportunity with the new Republic parking office in Library Lane to maybe eat into some of the office space that they have on William Street. The cashier needs to stay, but maybe there's an opportunity on William Street to animate it, which then gets us to, well, as long as we're there, we're going to be adding all of this. We're going to need to add electrical, which gets us tied in with now the electric charging project. And so you can start to see these things are starting to come together at that garage. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. But to start it, we need to understand what may be the driver, which is the elevators. And from that, then we'll be bringing back to this board, I think, several of these other pieces, all of which are on that 5-year plan. Everything that I'm mentioning are pieces of a puzzle, and this would help us to start to knit them together. Key in this, with those renderings, is to be able to meet, I see Maura's here, but with the Main Street neighborhood, to make sure they understand what we're exploring. We need to meet with the building official. I think we need to meet in partnerships about things like that ground floor space and what we might use it for. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces to come together, and the renderings allow us to at least have something of a conversation.
And this is in the, officially in the city's, will be in the city's CIP when we get.
It is.
So that's in compliance with what the council had asked us to do going forward.
Yes.
Outstanding.
And I should also, this garage is expected to have at least 30 more years of life, possibly 50 more years of life, so it's an investment for the future as well.
Anything else?
Just really quick, what's the kind of urgency on the elevators? Where are we as far as how badly we need it now?
Well, I think at this point, when we're talking about construction phasing, and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, we would probably not be able to do anything until next winter in terms of starting demolition. That would be the earliest, if that's what you're asking about.
Yeah, there's no urgency. It's not as if anything is failing.
Okay.
But we quarterly ask for feedback from our parking patrons, and on a regular basis, we're hearing from people, these elevators just driving me nuts.
Yeah.
So in response to that, we want to be responsive and develop a plan to assist them in this. But there's no urgency, there's no crisis. This is going to be in a very thoughtful way, thought through. And as a piece of that, as John was describing, as we take what is the current stairwell and make that into an elevator shaft, there's going to be a demolition, noise, and dust. That's a key reason to plan the phasing around winter time when our windows are closed and there's not as many sidewalk cafes. So if we can sort of think that through, we could plan the start date in a thoughtful, non-urgent way to be as least intrusive as we can be.
Anything else?
Actually, one quick little comment. I don't think has been mentioned is that in looking at this sort of multi-phase project, one of the things that we've also talked about is facade upgrades, just to have the thing look better. So I thought of when you said 30 to 50 years, and I think there are a lot of people that think, oh my God, we're going to have to look at this thing for another 30 or 50 years. So that's part of the long-term plan too. It's looking at what can be done to improve the appearance of the facade.
And yeah, that is part of this as well, ideas for facade improvement.
Just as an aside, to kind of give you an idea based on that facade thing, I just learned recently that at University of Michigan, at the business school, that they have now decided they're going to reface that business school parking garage on Hill Street with that orange ceramic that the business school is, because they want to make it all look kind of contiguous and part of the same design. So, you know, we're not that crazy in saying, let's redo the facade of a parking garage.
They want to help pay for it.
No, they would not help pay for it, but the business school does not seem to be hurting for construction money anyway.
No.
We haven't voted on it. Shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
And I was given the task of being Keith Orr to give a transportation update, and all that I have is that Nancy Shore will be joining us at the next ops meeting to talk about all the things that DDA helps support, the Go Pass, the number 4, number 5 lines from Ypsilanti, and just having a general discussion around what Get Downtown and DDA are doing.
Downtown ambassadors?
Okay, got that. We talked about the potential ambassador program, also the Ops Committee, and we had Police Chief Cito and Hickey here to discuss it with us. We are certainly learning about what's involved in ambassador program, as are they. There were certainly, we raised some concerns about how communication would work and how they would the lines of separation of who would be doing what, how they could, an ambassador program could work with the police force, and I think Chief Cito was very certain that those issues could be worked out rather effectively, that I didn't think that communication or the coordination issues would be a problem to resolve. Since we're still learning about this, we really need more information. You've asked Susan to come up with a request for qualifications from various providers of these services. There are a number around the country. To give us a chance to sit down and talk with the actual people who run these programs and just get more information so we can come back at some point with a recommendation. So we'll be looking at the request for qualifications at the next Ops Committee meeting, and then see where we go from there.
One thing I found really interesting from Chief Cito and Sergeant Hickey was they are used to dealing with volunteer ambassadors for events now. So, it's not as though there's a huge learning curve in the sense, especially if it's a company that's hired that's kind of a professional company at doing this. I would expect, and he seems pretty encouraged that, heck, we can make this work pretty well. I think it adds an extra level from their point of view of a system that's in place.
Cool. Next meeting?
January 29th at 11 a.m.
Thank you. Other DDA business, I did have a quick question. Do we have an update on the Y lot? Is that closed?
Not yet. It'll close no later than March.
Okay. And our equipment is still there?
Yep. Yep.
Still operating.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't this morning.
Well, we had with all this snow and ice, the equipment some equipment around the city has had some problems with the temperature. But it is our understanding that with about 2 to 3 days lead time, Republic would be able to close out, remove equipment. We'll take, some of this is really newer, and we'll find its way to some of our other lots where the equipment may be older, but it won't take that much time. So we'll sort of follow the lead of what's taking place.
Any other DDA business? We've reached the part of the meeting where we have other audience participation, 4 minutes each. Is there anybody that's interested in speaking at the podium? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?